chapter of John. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. This is the testimony given by John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" He confessed and did not deny it, but confessed, "I am not the Messiah." And they asked him, "What then? Are you Elijah?" He said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" He answered, "No." Then they said to him, "Who are you? Let us have an answer for those who sent us. What do you say about yourself?" He said, "I am the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, 'Make straight the way of the Lord,' as the prophet Isaiah said." Now they had been sent from the Pharisees. They asked him, "Why then are you baptizing if you are neither the Messiah, nor Elijah, nor the prophet?" John answered them, "I baptize with water. Among you stands one whom you do not know, the one who is coming after me. I am not worthy to untie the thong of his sandal." This took place in Bethany, across the Jordan, where John was baptizing. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Can you think of those moments when someone pointed you to God? They told you a story, or they revealed something about their faith life that helped you see God more clearly. And they did it in such a way that you didn't see them because they pointed beyond themselves to testify to God. As a child, I attended a Catholic church. And in my CCD class, when I was probably in 4th or 5th grade, we went to the sanctuary. It was a pretty modern design. The sanctuary in a semicircle with the chancel at front and an altar that came out into the middle of the round. And above the altar was a skylight. My CCD teacher that day mentioned how she loved how the light would come through the skylight and land right on the altar. She talked about how it was God shining down into the space. For me, as a child, probably my daughter's age, this was a profound moment. I thought, God can be experienced this way? It was both a question of surprise and delight. It was such a profound moment that I remember this 30 years later. I'm sure for all the things my CCD teacher taught me, she'd be surprised to know that this is one of the things that stuck. She pointed beyond herself and showed me God. In today's gospel reading, John is on the scene to point people beyond himself to God's Messiah. Maybe you're wondering, why do we get 2 weeks of John, the forerunner of Jesus in the season of Advent? It's a fair question for sure. And my first time through the lectionary, that was my question too. Most years at Bethany, I don't have to preach on John twice because we have the Christmas pageant in here somewhere. So this year, we get John in all his glory. Well, it's helpful to remember that in Advent, our expectations for Christ's coming starts in this cosmic scope as we anticipate Jesus coming at the end of time to redeem and renew all of creation. So John is that voice that points us to Jesus, to expect the new thing that Jesus will do in the world. And then as we move through Advent and we get closer to Christmas, our focus narrows from cosmic to the particular when God first came to earth as a child. So this week, we're still anticipating Jesus' arrival at the end of time. And John helps us to see our role to prepare the way of the Lord and to testify to the light of the world. Now, last week, we heard about John the Baptist from the Gospel of Mark. Today, we hear about John in the Gospel of John, different guy. This John from the wilderness is not John the Baptist, because in this gospel, John does not baptize Jesus. In this gospel, John from the wilderness is John the witness. He's here to point people to the light. As John, this time the gospel writer says, John the witness was sent from God to testify to the light that was coming into the world. That was his mission. And so when the priests and the Levites asked him who he was, John the witness downplayed who he was. He wasn't the Messiah. He wasn't Elijah. He was not a prophet. And instead, John the witness pointed to the Messiah to come. He pointed to the power of the one who would come. So could this be our Advent work? To point beyond ourselves to the one who is to come. To be Elaina the witness, or Doug the witness, Sue the witness, or David the witness. Now you say your name and follow it by the witness. Today, we get to be Bethany Lutheran Church, the witness, as we share our living nativity with the community. Sure, it seems sweet and fun to dress up as ancient characters, to have a flock of animals and a star hang in the sky over a tiny cradle. But it's so much more. We're pointing to God, who became flesh to dwell among us. We're pointing to a God who has done great things for us, as the psalmist says, who has turned our tears into joy. We point to a God who loves justice, as Isaiah proclaims. One who will turn this world upside down with good news for the oppressed and healing for the brokenhearted and liberty for the captives. We point to a God who will seek the welfare of all. These words from Isaiah allude to the biblical concept of Jubilee as discussed in the book of Leviticus, in which every 50 years, the economy is reset and debts are erased and slaves are free and land is returned to its original owners. Even creation gets a break. It lies fallow to recoup and rest. This reset keeps the rich from always getting richer while the poor get poorer. We point to a God who loves justice that looks like that. We point to a God who is on the way to heal and redeem all of creation, who will take the world as it is and transform it into the world as it should be, where peace, love, and justice reign. This is our hope and our joy that God's kingdom would come on earth as in heaven. This is the day we hope for and prepare for and pray for, as Paul encourages without ceasing. We point to a God who would humble himself to take on human form and a frail child, who would meet us in our hopes and fears of all the years, who would show us God's heart full of love, who would grow up and humble himself to the point of death, who would save us from ourselves. John the witness pointed the people to the one who is to come. His mission was to testify to the light of the world. Today, we, Bethany Lutheran Church, the witness, point to Jesus, to the one who has come and who will come and who arrives among us today. It's sweet, it's fun, but it is so much more. We point to the one who changes us and changes the world. Thanks be to God. Amen.